All right. Good morning, Megan.
I actually think I'm 1A.
You are.
I was just like, wait a second.
Yeah, we switched you around yesterday just because of our State Department
Oh,
observer. So,
yeah.
yes, thank you for doing that, by the way.
Yeah, how are you?
Good. Final stretch.
I know. It's exciting.
Yes, very exciting. So, just yeah, trying to finish strong. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
Good. I just have to adjust my camera.
Yes. No worries.
What week is this now? Is this week 3 for you guys or?
Yes.
Awesome.
So Friday's our last day.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know it
That
flew
went by
by.
like super quick.
It did. It did. Truly. So fast.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So feels good to be on the home stretch.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. How are you feeling with the start of the semester approaching?
Yeah. A little busy. Just a little busy.
I can't even imagine. I bet. I bet.
It's a lot of work. I mean, I don't think people realize a lot of manual work that the team has to put in because of the systems that we're on. But registration. Once registration starts, it's a whole new ball game that you have to really do everything manually. So it's been interesting, but I mean, I feel good about it. It's not like I'm not crying, so that's good.
That is good.
Yeah. So it'll be okay.
It will. It will.
I think we're doing an awesome job and everyone's like just really responding quickly. And that's what makes it so great because we're not letting issues sit, we're resolving them and it's just best for the students all around. So
Good.
yeah.
Hey, Gabby, it's Casey. Do I have the right 1D?
You sure do.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Gabby, I'm sorry. What's my group number today?
You're 1B.
1B. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so now that we're all here, I'm going to open it up for the Fulbrighters. So you'll start to see them joining, and we'll
Okay.
get started right around 8.
Sounds good.
Perfect. All right, hello for everyone just joining, and welcome to our 4th synchronous session. We will get started in just a few moments. In the meantime, do make sure your breakout room name is displayed in front of your name in Zoom. And then if you're able to, turn your camera on and mute your microphone as we wait to get started. Hello for everyone just joining, and welcome to our 4th synchronous session. We will get started in just a couple minutes. In the meantime, please be sure your breakout room name is displayed in front of your name on Zoom. Make sure your microphone's muted and turn your camera on if you're able to, and we'll get started in just a couple minutes. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to another synchronous session in your Gateway orientation. Again, I'm Gabby. I've really enjoyed, interacting with you all over this past week since we've last met in Zoom, and I'm really excited to see you all back here today. Today's session is on navigating interpersonal relationships. So you all have already completed the asynchronous components of this module in Canvas. And we are here today to just talk with one another and have a live discussion about some of the ideas and concepts that you learned about in this module. As a friendly reminder, this main session is being recorded, so anything that is said in this main session will be in that recording, but your breakout rooms are not recorded. So when we go into our smaller groups with your facilitator, anything that you say in that segment of the session today will not be recorded. So feel free to use that as a space where you can be open and honest and just have a, really engaging dialogue about our subject for today. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Danielle Paget. We're very excited to have her back for our synchronous session today. You all met her last week for our cross-cultural understanding session, and we are thrilled to have her back here today to lead us through a discussion on navigating interpersonal relationships. So Dr. Paget, I turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Gabby. I hope everybody can hear me. Looks like we had a small glitch right there, but it popped right back. What I'd like to do is just for a few moments, I'm gonna run us through what's gonna happen in the session. We have about an hour with each other today. And what I'm gonna do is kind of go into a little more detail. What you see on your screen now is the 2 questions that we're going to deal with in our breakout rooms. Prior to that, I'll just make a few comments about microaggressions just to kind of take us into the breakout rooms. And then we'll disperse this main session We'll go into breakout rooms. You'll naturally be put in there just like you did last week. And then we'll come back together to share out and kind of tie up the day together. So in the lesson, I think this particular lesson was divided into 3 segments. And the last segment of the lecture talked about inclusive language, and it talked about microaggressions. Microaggressions is one of the main areas that I do when I talk to a lot of groups in my consulting life. And I just did a session yesterday that dealt with some of these principles. And so prior to going into the great breakout rooms, let me just make a few comments, because one of the things that you learned in as you listened to the lesson was that almost all cross-cultural encounters can be prone to microaggressions. Another thing that you learned, we talked about what microaggressions are. We dealt with how they impact people who are on the receiving end of microaggressions. And then I gave you the scenarios that we're doing today. And so when we look at what they are, these can be fleeting kind of comments. They may seem innocent, but they do great harm. We talked about the fact in the lesson, I talked about the fact that microaggressions can be intentional or unintentional. And I think, the thing to kind of keep in mind about these, even when, say, for instance, something is unintentional and someone is not consciously aware that they're doing this, it doesn't mean that it takes away the harm, right? And that it does less harm. It's still very harmful. So it's so important for us to really begin to understand what they are and how to really engage microaggressions on an interpersonal level. So they definitely, any kind of cultural experience, microaggression can creep up in any kind of interaction. There are fleeting comments. The other piece to kind of talk about is that these are slights against socially marginalized groups. So when you look at the scenarios today, one of them involves an African-American woman and another one involves a Latino male student. And so as you look at this, really be thinking about these socially marginalized groups. I know that in some of our research, we call them underrepresented groups. In some circles, you may call it a minority individual. I don't like the word minority or minor attached to any of this, but it's so important to understand. And it's not just racial and ethnic groups, but there's other aspects of difference that also may cause people to be on the receiving end of a microaggression. So this definitely could be gender-based, it could be gender expression, gender identity based, it could be based on ability, and so religious affiliation. I was doing a session for a company this summer, and we were doing dialogue circles with their employees, and they were saying they have an intranet. And this is an internal kind of internet system that only they have access to in the company. And they were saying that, someone posted on the internet and it was derogatory about someone's religion. And so, yes, that would qualify also as a microaggression. And they just were incredulous, couldn't believe that something like this was posted publicly on their internal network. So those are a few things that we learned about microaggressions. What I'd like to do is just to kind of take you through the questions, and then we're going to give some instructions before we disperse. So let's look at the first scenario. This one says an African-American woman in her 60s. And the only reason I'm not going to read from the screen is because I've got the pictures of everybody on the right-hand side, so it kind of cuts it off a little bit. But an African-American woman in her 60s goes to see a medical doctor for a temporary medical condition. During the routine part of the exam, the doctor begins to ask her questions, including whether she has diabetes, high blood pressure, and I put et cetera. And when you look at this example, one of the things to understand, particularly about African-Americans in the US, is there are many pre-existing health conditions that many African Americans experience. So in this scenario, really be thinking from a doctor perspective about just the level of awareness that many African Americans have high blood pressure or diabetes or whatever. And so when we talk about stereotypes, this is something that we have to keep in mind, because we can't generalize across populations and just say, okay, you're African American, so you must have all of these things. But anyway, he starts to ask her this, and she tells him no, she doesn't have any of these conditions. And so he continues to ask, are you sure? As if, she says, he doesn't believe her. He then asks whether she has her original teeth or does she have partials in her mouth, and seems surprised when she tells him, yes, these are all my original teeth. He proceeds to open her mouth and look into her mouth, again, as she says, as if he doesn't believe me. So that's the first example. And the questions that I'm asking you to think about when you go into your sessions, is this a microaggression, right? That's number one. And so in the lesson, we had the definition. Part of this is also, if so, what is it? What about it is evidence of a microaggression? So as you begin to look, back in the lecture, I know we talked about different kinds of microaggressions. I isolated racial microaggressions, and we talked about micro assaults, micro insults, invalidating someone's identity. So there's different ways that this can be expressed. So if so, what about it is evidence? Like, point to, in your discussions, to segments of this case, this example, that illustrate or not a microaggression. And then what message does it send? So one of the main things is to really begin to think full circle about, when these statements go out, what do people feel on the receiving end? So I want you to really kind of be thinking about that as you go into the sessions. The second question is about, like I said, a Latino male doctoral student. He's studying education and is interested in publishing work which looks at the disparities experienced by Latinx students at predominantly white universities. He's discouraged by his white professors from pursuing this ethnic research program of study. In fact, one of his professors says, do you want to just be a Latino scholar or a real scholar? To make matters worse, reviewers' comments from his latest submission to a journal suggest he broadened his scope to students in general, instead of just studying the Latino experience. The comments suggest it would be more publishable if it were more broad. So again, those questions: is it a microaggression? Point to evidence and really begin to think about people on the receiving end of the microaggression. So I think I'm getting the all clear that we're ready to go into our breakout rooms. So what's going to happen, you're going to go into your breakout rooms. You already know that you're going to have a wonderful facilitator there to guide you in that session. You're going to be there for about 25-30 minutes. And then, of course, I would love to have a scribe. So when you get into your breakout rooms, I need one person to volunteer to be the scribe and just jot down themes that were discussed in response to these questions. And then when we come back together, we may not be able to get through all of the questions for all of the groups, but we will do like, hey, was this a microaggression? How many of you thought it was a microaggression? If that's the case, that's wonderful. I think the real conversation is about those other two questions and really beginning to point out some specifics. So if we're ready, I'm gonna give it back to Gabby. We're going into our rooms. See you on the other side.
Yes, sounds good. Thank you so much, Dr. Padgett. All right, so I am going to open up the rooms now. You will be there for about 30 minutes, and then you will be pulled back into the main room for a debrief when we are done. So I will see you all soon.
All right.
All right.
All right, Gabby, I'm going to go ahead and do my stuff. Last week, I didn't have the boys here. So
Okay.
I think I'm trying to remember where they were. I think they were with their dad. And
Okay.
my mom was supposed to have them today, but she got called in for a job interview. So they are here, and I'm gonna go, I think, feed the dog and take him out.
Sounds good. Sounds
Okay.
good.
All right.
See you soon.
Okay.
Hi there, Alina.
Hello. I have to go to the breakout room 1J and I was sent to 1E instead.
Oh, so you're in the wrong Zoom session. Let me give you the right link. Hold on. This room has 1 through E, or A through E, I guess I should say. So let me get the one that has F through J. Yes, it is this one. Okay, I am going to put it in the chat for you here. So you'll need to join that room.
Thank you.
You're welcome.